So I was watching that new Godzilla trailer a million times in a row and was like, screw it. Let's go ahead and review all of Godzilla. And there's only one place to begin. The legendary original that started it all. Gojira, the king of the monsters. As you could probably tell from the way I title the movie, I have something of a warped perspective of it, wanting to honor the original while also holding dear my memories of seeing the edited American version. Simply put, the first Godzilla movie is two out-and-out must-see classics. A tale of the absolute destructive power of the atom bomb personified as a big damn lizard by the one culture that actually suffered its full consequences. The lesson of the movie, that an inventor must take personal responsibility for the effects of their creations. A lesson that's still relevant today with the endless barrage of social doodads that have power over people, corporations, and nations almost equivalent to weapons. As I said, the version of the movie that lives in my heart is the Americanized version with Raymond Burr. That should come as no surprise, as the original movie was just plain not available for most of my life. Although I'm pretty much against all censorship and I acknowledge the Japanese version as the superior one, it is the king of the monsters that I always return to. On the subject of the censored version, for years I thought it must have been the most totally ineffective and useless censorship ever. I never had any doubt that Godzilla was about the bomb, or that it was American atomic weapons that awoke the creature. So what were they trying to hide? And it wasn't like the American version skimped out on the anti-nuclear message of the movie either. One of the first shots is a doctor with a Geiger counter making it clear that this kid wasn't gonna make it. Even after finally getting to see the original movie, I didn't quite understand what I was missing out on. At first glance, the changes seemed like nothing more than one might expect from an effort to insert a new character into an already completed movie. So of course, the beginning would have to be different. You actually have to dig a little deeper to learn that the fishing boat at the beginning of the movie and all the hysterics surrounding it were based off a real event. When detonated, the Castle Bravo nuclear test turned out to be twice as powerful as predicted, and is to this day the 5th most powerful man-made explosion. Hell yeah! Go America! USA and all that! But, as it turns out, having a bomb you're testing be twice as powerful as you thought it would does have some downsides. The added destructive power meant that the danger zone for the blast should have been much bigger than it was. This caused havoc on many Pacific communities, and no one was closer than the crew of the fishing vessel Lucky Dragon number 5. Suffering from radiation sickness, the crew limped their vessel back home, and their story became the center of an international incident. Now, only one of them actually died, but there was a big damn panic when it was realized that the irradiated fish that they had caught had been unloaded and brought to market and possibly taken home and eaten. It was offensive to learn that my country had been so irresponsible with its most dangerous weapon. Like, get this, we sent doctors over there, but not to help anybody. They were just there to observe the effects and add to our knowledge of the progression of radiation sickness. Yee. It is this event that Godzilla is all about. While reading about the crisis on his way home to Japan, producer Tomiyuki Tanaka came up with the idea of the blast also laying waste to the natural habitat of a group of prehistoric aquatic reptiles lost to time, and the last survivor of this cataclysm coming ashore to carry out its terrible vengeance against mankind. 2 years later, in 1956, when the King of the Monsters version was released, this was still an ongoing embarrassment. Places as far out as Australia were finding traces of the fallout. Understandably, but also a bit cowardly, references to the event that inspired the movie in the first place were removed from the film. But there's a trade-off here. Thanks in no small part to the American version, Godzilla was spread around the world and created a path through movies and history so that no matter which one was your first, you might, if you were so inclined, follow this trail back to the original, and so maybe, as a result, far more people have heard its message. Crap, you might even be learning it from me right now. Weird. Part of me wishes there could be some sort of new edition of the movie that has Burr not in Tokyo as part of a layover on his way to Cairo, but to cover the ongoing crisis as seen in the original. But seeing how everybody loses their minds whenever a classic is altered in any way, I get the feeling that wouldn't go over well. As I go through this series of movies, there will be quite a few times when Japan will be at odds with America. But there's also great collaborations, and for Godzilla to become what it was today, it took both of us. They created this creature and filled it with their heart and soul and history. We merely noticed the sincerity and importance of the movie's message, and how marketable its monster was, and declared him king to spread his influence around the world. There are a few strengths I feel the King of the Monsters added that I want to point out. Okay, So the opening of the Japanese version is iconic and important because it contains all the stuff that the movie was made for, but I still think the opening of the Yankee version is better. One of 56's little tricks was to start near the end of the story and tell the events of the movie in flashback. And so the movie opens with Burr's character, Steve Martin, waking up in the ruins of Tokyo the day after Godzilla's attack, while giving a legendary monologue to make sure that folks outside of Japan understand what's at stake. Imagine being a kid going through as best you can the Godzilla movies at all the local rental joints, piecing together a saga of movies in the world before Wikipedia, being skeptical about this black and white one said to be the first, but eventually going for it, excitedly sitting down to learn what had originally made Godzilla great, only to be confronted by the naked desolation of nuclear war.
This is Tokyo, once a city of 6 million people. What has happened here was caused by a force which, up until a few days ago, was entirely beyond the scope of man's imagination.
Damn, this stuff is serious. Starting this way was and is probably necessary for countries outside Japan, and in the US in particular. It's easy to forget that America came out of both world wars basically completely unscathed. All the fighting had been elsewhere. Meanwhile, every other participant had some level of destruction to clean up after. When was the last time any American had their entire community wiped out by an enemy force? 1812 or something like that, right? Frankly, it's hard to even wrap my head around. The opening of Godzilla King of the Monsters does almost all that can be done in a movie to try and get you in that headspace. I mean, at least while keeping it PG. In comparison, without the context of history, the original feels like your standard fare for monster movies, with the increasingly odd occurrences until the first sighting of the beast. With the conceit of Mr. Martin being a reporter relating his experiences over the last few days, the movie feels like a real event that's being relayed to us. When Burr is not delivering iconic opening monologues, his narration is mostly effective, though he can be a bit annoying during Godzilla's attack on Tokyo, where he's kind of reduced to saying in words what we, the audience, just watched ourselves. Though his presence in Tokyo is kind of an advantage in of itself, as it puts a main character in Godzilla's path, something that doesn't happen in the original. I guess Yamani's house was safely out of the way and... Tell you what, I have no concept of where Serizawa's lab is. Speaking of Yamane and Serizawa, screw America, it's time to talk about my favorite stuff from the Japanese version. And the good doctors stand front and center in that regard. Both of the Doctor's struggles with the need to destroy Godzilla are much more clearly realized here. Without Steve Martin stealing the spotlight, it's Yamane that sort of takes the lead of this ensemble as chief guy going around discovering stuff. Once his findings are presented to the public, he is somewhat dismayed that the decision reached by pretty much everybody but him is that Godzilla must be killed. Whereas he believes that in studying Godzilla and how he apparently absorbed a huge amount of radiation without dying, we may learn ways to protect people from the effects of radiation. But the destruction of ships is judged more important, and so Yamane is left sullenly sitting in his room wondering what man might learn if they were to study Godzilla, while the plan to use depth charges was being carried out. One of my favorite things in the original version is actually kind of silly. It's this little bit of Serizawa on the dock seeing the others off. For some reason, I really get a kick out of seeing him out in public looking like a normal person, rocking those awesome shades. For 20 years I had seen him as one of the quintessential mad scientists, and this was a side of his character never seen in the original. Serizawa is something of a unique hero. He has a more complete appreciation of how the evils of mankind can outpace even the king of the monsters, and knows the dangers his discovery could present in the wrong hands only too well. He is only moved from this unshakable position by the kind of national mourning, the likes of which is never seen on the silver screen to this degree. We regularly bear witness to the destruction of cities nowadays, but never has the aftermath of the destruction stood so heartbreakingly front and center in the actions of the main characters. Though I have to say I actually sort of disagree with some of Serizawa's actions. By taking himself and his notes out of the picture, he may greatly delay the use of the oxygen destroyer as a weapon, but if it exists, then anyone could in theory discover it again in the future. But now he's removed himself from adding his voice into the discussion for how it might be used, and possibly added an extra delay to discovering useful things that the oxygen destroyer might do. But I guess I should wait till the Godzilla movie that kind of addresses this to talk more along these lines. So hold that thought for like 20-some movies or something. Will I really do them all? Show it a shin? Everything in between and beyond? Well, that's my goal anyways. Welcome to my year of Godzilla, I guess. Stick around to see how I do. Oh, hey. A friend of mine named Doom Watched has made a channel where you could Doom listen to his Doom metal, which ain't my thing, but maybe you'll be interested. If he does a Doom metal cover of the Godzilla theme, I'll link it or something. But first you have to deal with my acapella nonsense. Till the next one, here's the time well wasted. Bwamp, 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 bwamp. Bwamp, 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 bwamp. Down, 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 down. Bum, 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 bum.